Hi everyone, so welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do Dahlia flower for you. There are various different types of Dahlia flower that you can do, so it's a matter of choice as to which sort you want to do, and which is easier for you, I should say. Some of them can be quite complicated, especially when you get onto things like the pom-pom variety, but I am going to have a go at that in the future, and if I can perfect that, then I will do a video on it as well. So I'll take you down to my board now to start off with. So the colour I'm going to start off with is this peachy colour. I have got some Dahlia petal cutters here that I found online. They do come in a set with two larger ones, but the reason why I'm not using these is because if I show you one I've already made, this is one I've already done, and I've only gone up to, with these sizes that I've got here, are the sizes that I've used for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this one, but I am going to use different colours in order to get there, because there are various different stages that you need to let your flower dry in between. So to save time, I'm going to show you the different steps, but doing so in the end up I will have got a variety of different colours that I can put on the Facebook pages. So I'm going to use this, I've coloured some peachy coloured paste here. I've already got one done that I've got part way, which is done in a yellow colour, so I'm going to come back to that one. That's going to get me up to the stage before the last stage on that one. So to start off the initial stages, the other cut I'm going to use is this one, which was actually bought as an all-in-one freezer cutter that somebody had, and I got it copied, but unfortunately I don't like it for making freezers, and I haven't found another use for it until now. So I'm going to use that for the early stages, for the centre of the flower. So I'm going to roll out some paste, so I won't need all that. I'm just going to use half of this. Just get myself a bag to keep that covered. So we'll put that in there, because we will be coming on to that. Like a rose, I'm going to add white into it to get to different stages, but rather than adding equal amounts, I'm only going to use half the amount of white, but I'll get on to that in a minute when I've done this. So I'm going to start off by rolling this out. I just need some white fat on there before I do this. Right. Now I'm going to not roll it too thin, because I need to stretch the petals in order to get to where I want to be with this. So I'll cut that out. You can use any 6-petal cutter. If you've got one that's got deeper cuts in, that'll make it easy. You won't have to do the next stage that I'm going to do. So I've cut one out and I wanted 2 out. Just bear with me a second. Just re-roll my paste out again. I should have got 2 out of that. Get another one out. There we are. Put that one away. If anybody's got any questions about any of my videos, make sure that you leave your comments in below, and if you've got any suggestions about anything you'd like to see me do. I've already got a suggestion from one of my people who have subscribed to my channel. Just bear with me. I've cut my finger, so I'm having a bit difficulty to getting into my plastic bag, because I can't use that finger. Last time I tried it, I tried doing this video and it started bleeding, so I had to go off and attend to that. So take a tip from me, keep your fingers out of the way when you're cutting anything. Right, so what I need here is a pair of nail scissors. Those are the wrong ones because they've got a curved edge on them. I have got another pair in here somewhere, if I can find where I've put them. It's always a good idea to keep 2 or 3 pairs for whatever. They're probably out somewhere. I thought I'd put everything back into my little caddy there, and I can't see them. I do this every time I do a video. Anyway, we'll use those. I'll manage with these. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to cut in between those petals. So I'm just going to make a little cut like that. I'm going to go around and do that in between each of the petals. The reason being I want them longer. So if you've got a cutter that's got that hasn't, you don't have to do this with, then that's fine. Just having to keep my scissors at an angle because these have got curved blades on them. Right, so once you've done that, then I'm going to cut down the centre of each of these petals. And this is going to form the centre of the flower. You could do this with a cutting wheel as well. You don't have to necessarily do it with a pair of scissors. I find because of the length of the blade that I've got a bit more control on how far down I'm cutting with these things. So it's up to you whichever way you want to do it. Right, I'm just going to do that with this one as well. So I need both of these ready to do the first phase of this flower. Talk amongst yourself while I'm doing this. I'm a Yorkshireman, I have to make a joke while I'm doing it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. The more subscribers I've got, the better it is for me to be able to keep going. So please subscribe, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. And it is free to subscribe as well. It's not going to cost you anything. There's no charges here. I just carried on when I gave up teaching at college because I like teaching people. And I like learning as well. I mean, some of the things that I'm getting to do are different things to what I did when I was teaching at college. So I've done a lot of videos on my channel if you want to have a look through them, to cover various different areas. Now where's my pad? Just get this pad down. I've got one here that I've already got to next to the lead stage, so I'm just going to get that up there and put my flowers onto there. Just get rid of the scissors, and that petal's curled under. We'll just straighten that out. Right, so with your medium ball tool, small end, all you're going to do is just stretch these petals out like that, straight down the middle like that. What you've got to do is, you can check this when you've done this to make sure that when you pull your petals up, they fully cover the top of the styrofoam ball. You're also shaping your petals at the same time, so it's almost like a chrysanthemum, but not quite as fine as the petals on there. The reason I haven't used that is because they have a habit of breaking off because they're so fine, so I'm not using that for this particular flower. So I'll just move that to one side and then do the same with the other one. Just make sure you don't get two petals stuck together, you keep them separated. You don't want your paste too thin when you're doing this, otherwise you won't be able to stretch it like I'm doing here. The petals are going to be quite thin, but you have to think about that when you're cutting things out, when you're rolling your paste out. Right, so now I've got to that stage. You don't need to do anything with these. You don't need any veining or anything like that because you can't see it. So I'm just going to go up the petals with the glue. I will finish these flowers off. For those of you that come from the pages that I post on Facebook, I will finish all these off so that I can show them all on that page. So you get your styrofoam ball and your wire into the centre of your flower and bring that up to your styrofoam ball. You can turn it over when you do this, and just bring your petals over the top of the styrofoam ball. If I just lift it up that way so you can see what I've done there. If they need to stretch a little bit further, just stretch them a little bit so they come up to the centre of your ball, because you don't want that to be seen. And then take your other petals over. Sorry, I've gone out of shot there. I do apologise. I should have looked at my camera. Doesn't matter if they overlap a bit here with this. So we've totally covered the centre of the ball there. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some glue on these petals, but I'm only going to go a short way up each of these petals. And I'm just going to adjust my camera before I do this so that I don't go out of shot again. So I'm just going to, whoops, I'm just going to tilt my camera up this way. That's it. Then you can see what I'm doing. Don't want any more complaints about going out of shot. Right, so bring that up to your centre. Drop that down like that, and then just go around the ball there just to attach those petals that we've got there. Just spread them out. Then if you bring your flower up, just have a look at it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang that upside down to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the wire over like that, and I'm just going to pop that into the side here under my block and just leave that there for the time being. Right, so I need my orange paste again. I want some white. I don't want to go too light with these, although the reason why we do this is because when you look at a flower in reality it appears darker in the centre because all of the petals are tightly close together. So I'm going to add about that much amount of paint. In fact, I'll take a little bit off of that, I think. So it's round about half the amount that I've got there, and then mix that in. To bring the colour down a little bit. I'm just trying to avoid that finger there. Normally I wouldn't worry about that, but I don't want it to start bleeding again like it did earlier on before I started this video. You don't want to be watching that, do you? Just a tip here for anybody watching, if you don't know about this, when you cut your finger or anything like that, put a bit of honey on your plaster on the cut, it heals a lot faster. It was when I had a bakery shop years ago, my manageress told me about that, and it heals up within 2 or 3 days and disappears. Right, so we've got down to that colour now. I'm just going to pop that white back in the bag. Just going to roll that up for now. It doesn't matter about sealing it as long as it's rolled in so that it doesn't get in the way. So if I start roll that out again. Again, I don't want it too thin because I'm going to use the same method as I've just used with the first layer. Only this time I'm making sure I roll it out enough so I can get 2 cuts of that out of it. So I'm going to cut 2 of these out again. Wrap that back up. Pop that away. And like I did with the previous layer, cut in between your petals. You will see at the end as well, I've also used this cutter to make the calyx for the finished Dahlia. I just find it easy to do it on my hand here so that I've got it close to so I can see what I'm doing. And then go down the centre of each of the petals again. And the other one. Bit like watching paint dry, isn't it, watching this? If I had students in the room now, they'd be asking me all sorts of questions while I'm doing this, instead of this silence that you get in between each of the stages that you're doing while you're concentrating on what you're doing. If I knew how to do a live show, I could do that, couldn't I? But unfortunately I don't. My capabilities techno-wise are not bad, but limited to a certain extent when it comes to anything like that, because I've never done it. Right, so like you did with the last layer, stretch out. Same as you did with the first layer, so you want them stretching out about the same amount. You can tell by looking at it if you've got them more or less the same length. Doesn't have to be exact with this, because some of the Dahlias are quite raggedy, if that makes sense, and a bit untidy. Unless you get onto the pom-pom varieties, as I've said, which are all sort of curled over. I've never had a go at doing one of them, and I did ask Alan Dunn about doing that at one point in time, and he said he couldn't be bothered doing it, so if he can't do it, then who else is going to do it? For those of you know who Alan Dunn is. Whether he's done one since or not, I don't know, but it isn't in any of his books that I've got. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to curl these in, so I'm just going to come down like that, and curve them in, cut them, because we're going to let this hang a bit loose when we put this next layer on. So you need to get some shaping into your petals. There we are. So again, I'm only going to do the centre and a little way up the petals with the glue. Probably about a quarter of the way up the petals, I would say. If you need more glue, you can always add it afterwards, but never put too much on, because it's difficult to take it off if you get too much on. So again, get your centre into the centre of the flower, bring it up to the base and turn that over, and just let that hang down, and just go around and just make sure that that's stuck on like that. So we've got to that stage, but I'm going to leave it upside down so that they stay in place. I'm just going to very carefully pop that on one side for a minute while I put some glue on here, and then do this quickly. Oops. And then again, like we did with the first layer, just pop that down quickly, bring that up before my petals fall back, and try and get your petals in between the first layer. If you can do that with each of your layers, not essential, but it does give you more of an aesthetically pleasing look to your flower, like that. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that, bend that over again, and pop that onto the side to dry. Now the next stage that I'm going to do for that, I'm going to go on to the Dahlia petals and the veinas. So again, I'm going to add some more white paste into my paste. I'm going to use half of this because I won't need all of that. And again, I'm going to use about a quarter of the amount of white to add into that. Just get that softened up, that's fine. If you get any hard lumps in your paste and that, don't throw it away. People do waste an awful lot of stuff, and it costs a lot of money, because this cake decorating and sugar craft is not a cheap hobby to be in. If you do get any hard lumps, roll it out on your board with your rolling pin, crush your dried bits, and then re-knead it, and it'll come back again. So don't waste it if you don't have to. Unless it's rock hard all the way through, then obviously there's nothing you can do about it. But if it's just a bit crusty on the outside, don't be throwing it away. Waste not, want not, my mother told me. And I hate waste. Just the way that I was brought up. And in these days of climate change and all that, we should all be thinking that way. Money's too tight these days to do that. Right, so once that's rolled, I'm just going to put some more white fat on my board now, because I need it to roll out without ruching up. I am going to roll it thinner this time. Just move that out of the way. I used that earlier, didn't need that. We're not putting wires or anything into these. These are going to be stuck directly onto that, but we're using a different method this time with the petals. Now you need quite a lot of petals for this. There's a lot of petals on there. What have I done with my cutter? Oh, knock that on the floor. There it is. So I'm going to cut out about 18 of these. 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 16, 17, 18. Now if you're not a fast worker like me, don't cut as many petals out, just do a few at a time, otherwise your paste will dry out. And for what I'm going to do, you don't want your paste to dry out too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to sit and make you watch me do 18 petals. I will stop filming once I've showed you how to do it until I get on to the last petal. Then you don't have to watch it all. This is nothing worse than watching a video where nothing's happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I've only done 17 petals there, but never mind. I thought I'd cut 18 out, but we will manage with that. Right, so we need to get those onto your tool pad. I didn't thin the edges with the first layers for the simple reason that you're already stretching the petals anyway, so that thins it out. So it doesn't matter with that. But when you come on to all the next stages, you do need to thin your petals before you do anything else with them, like you would with any other flower. So if you've got your paste a little bit thick, then they need to look thin on the edge, as I was told by judges at Cake International when I entered many moons ago. Doesn't matter about them curling up like that because they're going to be straightened out in a bit when I put them into the verner. Just keep your ball tool half on and half off. You want to be on the very edge. I found with a lot of my students, as I've probably mentioned before in previous videos, that using a ball tool was easier than using a dog bone tool. So I got a lot of my students to go on to the ball tool instead, because you can do the same things with it, but you can do other things with it as well. So it's probably a little bit more versatile than a dog bone tool. So if you're just buying your first lot of equipment, get a set of ball tools. The metal ones are really good for the simple reason that they don't wear out. Plastic ones eventually, if you put a lot of pressure on like I do, they can snap eventually, depending on what make you're using. But don't buy cheap equipment. I keep coming back to that. Don't buy cheap equipment. Buy the best you can afford. It's not worth buying cheap. Right, so these petals go into the top of the smallest verner. I'm just going to do a couple of these just to show you what I'm going to do, and then I'll stop filming and come back when I've done them all. So I'm just going to turn those over onto the right side like that. Now here you'll need a cell pin if you've got one. This is the very smallest ones. If you haven't got this, a cocktail stick will do. Now what you do is you get your petal towards you with the pointed end, which is the top end of your cutter, so your cutter's a little bit fatter at the bottom, thinner at the top there. So we want that that point towards you. And what we're going to do is, if you just get your nail underneath and roll the petal and roll your tool like that to curve your petal. I'm just going to bring it a bit higher up. There we are, like that. So you've got your petal like that, and then what you need to do then is get that between your two fingers and roll it. So it keeps that cut bit at the top there. So I'll do that again. Point your end towards you, and then get your bottom of your little cell tool high enough up. Don't go right down to the bottom because it won't wrap round if you do. Then once you get it together, just roll it between your fingers like that. You don't need to put any glue on if your paste is thick enough. Those two are a bit different, but it doesn't matter if you get some difference in them. So I'll just go through that again. Right into the top of your veiner, because that's the only bit that's going to be seen at the very tip anyway. And then turn that over so your front is upwards. Get your nail underneath you on the side there to start it rolling, and roll that in like that. And then just get between your two fingers and just roll it at the bottom. So basically you're making like a sort of a cone shape. So do that with all of your petals, and then once you've done that, then when I've done all those, I'll come back. So I've got all my petals done now, and I'm going to start attaching them. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to go around the base of the flower that I'd already done with some glue. I've only gone down about there around the thing. You might have to add more depending on where you get to and how many petals you use. So if you get your petals and then turn them over so that the open side is facing inwards, and then just press that onto there. Just make sure that your petals are slightly higher than the previous layer. So if you just go around the base like that, once you've got the first petals on, you know where you're going to with it. You don't want to go too far down. If it's a bit longer like that one is, then just go a little bit higher up. It's quite a warm day here today, so my paste is drying out fairly quickly. So I'm just having a little bit of trouble here with the, oops. Just need to put a little bit more glue on there for that one. Turn that over. I've got some glue on my fingers, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that back under there for a minute, and I've got my dusting bag here. If this happens, just get a bit of dust on your fingers just to dry them so that it doesn't stick. And then we get on to the next one. I managed to catch my fingers on the glue, that's what had happened there, and then of course the petals were sticking to my fingers instead of sticking to the flower. Just rolled them over like that so they're facing the other way. It's a bit of a fiddly job is this. It's something that you need to... Lost one. I think my glue needs to come a little bit further down here. Just take your time, don't try and rush it. I'm just going to space them out a little bit more, because as I say, I've just lost one there, and I'm trying to avoid not having to make any more to put on it. I'm just going to come down a little bit further with my glue, because I don't think I've come down far enough with the glue on these. Because when you're rolling them, some get a little bit longer than others, so I don't think I'm going to have enough petals here, so I might have to go off and make some more. Yes, I am going to need some more. It's very difficult to work out exactly how many petals you're going to need for these sort of flowers. Yeah, I need about another 4 or 5. But basically that's where I've got to with that flower. So I'm just going to switch off again and make the other petals that I need for that, and then I'll come back. Right, I've got all the rest of my petals made, so I'm just going to attach these to the flower. If they turn round a bit, just twist them round a bit like that. And I've done one too many there. Never mind, it's better to have too many than not enough. Put that last one into that gap there, like that. Just go around and just make sure those are nicely attached, like that. So that's one stage finished. So I'm going to put that back upside down and leave that to dry. Don't matter if they go a little bit higgledy-piggledy in there, you know. My word for today, I'm going to squash those. Move that out of the way, and we'll get on to the next layer. So again, with the next layer, I'm going to add some more white paste. This is one of the reasons why you don't want to start off with too much unless you're going to do a lot of the same flower, because as you keep adding white paste, it grows and grows and grows, and you end up with lots of bits and pieces left of coloured paste. So if you've got any plunger cutters, just make loads of little plunger flowers up with the paste that you've got left. Just move that out of the way. So I'm just going to get rid of that small cutter that I've already used and get rid of that over to there, and then I want the next size up, which is this one here. Let's move my cell stick out of the way. Right, again I'm going to cut out about 18 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops. Sometimes you get one jumps out like that. managed to get 17 out of that. That'll have to do. See how we go on. And again, onto your pad. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did before. Last one there, shot off my board. So I'm going to do all these, and then I'm going to come back, and I'll come back to when I'm nearly ready for adding them onto the flower. So now that I've got all my petals made, then I can start adding those to this flower. So it's the next layer. So I'm going to go over the petals that I've already put on, put some glue on there. And these will go higher up, so they'll go onto the part that I'd already glued with the previous layer. You just need to make sure that they come slightly higher up than the layer before it. Doesn't matter which way around you go, there isn't a right or a wrong way of doing this. And it doesn't matter if you spread them out, because you can come back and put petals in between as well. And what I'll do with this one, once I've finished this, I will stop and let this dry then before I put the next layer on. So I'm going to go on to a different colour after I've done this one, because as I say, I've got flowers at different stages ready because there are so many stages and petals on this flower. Just dropped one off there, that's come off there, so we'll just put a bit more glue on there. There we are. That wants to come a little bit lower down. There, yeah. Bit more glue on that. Oops, lost one. Right, there we are. So I've got all the petals on that one for that layer, so I'm going to leave that to dry now. And we'll go on to the next colour. So I'll just get my colours and that ready, and then we'll start on that. Down. I'm going on to the yellow one this time, because I need to let the peach one dry. Oops. Try not to drop it like I did. I'm trying to make this video not as long as it could be, but it is going to be quite a long video, I'm afraid. But you can always come back and watch it in parts if it's a bit too much. So I'm going to go up a size in Petals, so I've used that size, was the last size that I used. So I'm now going to go on to the third size. So I'm using 4 sizes here. Just move those out of the way. Because I'm getting bigger with the petals here, I'm going to go on to less petals now. I'm going to do 13 for this layer. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There we are. Into that, and again onto my pad. Lost my ball tool. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting a bit hoarse here. Might as well use that one. Just in case anybody's wondering about these cutters and veiners that I've got here, I have to admit I did buy these on AliExpress. So you should be able to get hold of these wherever you are in the world. Normally I tend to buy British, but with some of the ones that I've been doing, I haven't got the cutters and I found them on there. So the only problem is it's the length of time you've got to wait for them coming, because they do take forever depending on where you are to come. But they are very reasonably priced. And they do have a wide range of cutters. Oops. But things like the leaf cutters and that, they are British, are those. So it depends on which country, and I'm sure that you've all got different suppliers in your own countries that make cutters and veiners and things like that sort of thing. It's always good to look after your own. while I'm doing this as well, another thing to think about is if you're going to use things like this on a cake, normally I don't do a lot of big flowers like this, I do a lot of smaller versions, but the advantage of doing something like this is you don't need loads of flowers on a cake, and yet you would charge the same price because the same amount of work goes into making one of these flowers as there are into a lot of other flowers that are a lot simpler to make. As you can see, there's a lot of layers in this, a hell of a lot of petals. So back to the veiner again. So I'm using the same size veiner. This will take the whole of the petal now for this one. And we're going to do exactly the same as we've done with the other layers of petals. I'm just going to do a couple here and then I'm going to come back when I've done all the rest of them. So again, like before, turn it over with your front facing you and uppermost, and with the point facing towards you, and again get your little cell stick, roll it, and then roll between your fingers to thin that bottom bit down like that. So you're just making a bigger cone. You don't need to roll it quite as much now because we don't want it to be so small that you've got to do loads and loads of petals. Just enough so you've got your shape. So I'm going to carry on with these and I'll come back when I've finished them. Right, I'm just on to my last couple of petals. That's one, and there's the last one. You get it rolling first before you start doing anything else with it. It makes your job a lot easier then. You get it into the palm of your hand and roll it round. Right, now then, so what I'm going to do now with this one that I'm going to attach them to, you can put this on your board now because hopefully the petals underneath will have dried enough now so that you can add these petals directly onto it without having to lift it up, because when you start handling bigger things it starts getting a little bit more awkward. So I'm just going to go around that layer of petals there and add some glue all the way around. We're going about a third of the way down the petals on the previous layer. As I say, if you need to, you can always add a bit more on. So if you just get your petals then and just then place them onto your flower. Now this time with the bigger petals they will go right up to your wire. So if you just place them, I'm getting a bit of glue on my hand there so I shouldn't really be. That's just turned round a little bit. Let's just roll that over. There we are, like that. Make sure that you've got the open part facing down. I might be able to get another one in between them there, but we'll just come back to that in a bit and see how that pans out. Doesn't matter about this bit being untidy because that's going to be covered over, because you're going to put another layer of petals on top of that which will be wired petals, and I have left some gaps there, but I can come back to those and fill those in with any spare ones that I've got left, if you've got any gaps. Put a bit of glue on top of there because these are going to overlap a little bit. That was to come a bit further down. There we are. So once you've got those in, that's how your petals are looking now. You can go back into your flower now and you can adjust some of the petals a bit round, move them around so you haven't got as bigger gaps. Just to spread them out a little bit. Make them a little bit more even. And then that needs to go on one side and left to dry. So I'm just going to pop that up here. Oops, I dropped it. Oh. This is a tricky bit, getting them in position and making sure that everything stays as it should be, spacing them all out. If I can get it back in without dropping it again. There we are. Right, I can leave that to dry. Now I've already got one here that's got to that stage. This is already dry, is this one. So I'll just put that back up there. So this is where the next stage differs to what we've done before. I'm just going to put this other light on because it's got a bit dark outside and I'm losing the light in here a little bit. Lost the petal there off. I'll come back and find that in a bit. A bit better. Right, so I'm going to go back to my paste again. That's the colour that we've already used, and I'm going to add about half again the white into that. This is where we get onto the wired petals, and I've just started colouring that. I've just remembered I'm not doing this colour, am I? What I should have pointed out is I've actually made the petals already for this one somewhere. There they are, they're behind me. So I'm just going to add this in anyway. I'm going to put that away because I'll need this for the next layer on the yellow one. I could do these now, but I won't be able to put them on because they won't be dry. But I can show you one of these, how I did the wired ones. Now there's two ways you can do these. You can either do it with the groove method and put your wire into the groove and then roll your petals, or you can do it rolling it, putting the wire in. I'll explain as I've got that kneaded in properly. I just need that a little bit more. I've got to make some of these anyway for the next one, so I might as well use this colour because as I say, I've already got the petals made for the next layer on that, so this will be a bit quicker. I'm only going to do one petal of this. So I'm just going to roll enough paste out to get one petal out of it. And I'm going to go on to the largest size now, which is this one, I think. Yeah, that's that one. And I've also got a larger veiner here for that. So what I'll do is I'll just cut a couple of petals out with this one. And then I can set those to dry and I can do the rest later. Right, for this you need some 26 gauge wires, which I've already got a couple here. Again, I get a 26 gauge wire and cut it into 4. And we're going to do the same thing as we've done with all the other petals. Oops. Without throwing them about like that. thin the edges. And then we want the veiner. Pop your petals into the veiner. Take that out. Right, so once you've done that, that's got a bit curled over, but that doesn't really matter because we're not going to see that bit anyway at the bottom. Just get that vein out of the way. So I get my cell stick. Where is it there? And like we've done before, start curling your petals over like that. And then before you start rolling it too much, I'm just going to roll it gently just to get it round. Do the same with the other one. Now this is where we need to use some glue. Just do that off. So what I'm going to do is get the wire into your glue, straight into your paste, up into your paste, into your cavity. Whoops, nearly dropped it. Because when you put your wires into your glue, the tape starts to unravel if you're not careful. So you have to be fairly quick at getting this in. Into your paste like that. And then what you're going to do is get it on your hand and then roll it and give it a bit of pressure on there to make sure that that's rolled tight onto your wire. So when you lift it up, it should stay on like that. And then we can put that to one side to dry. So again, knock my glue over. Don't do that. Put your top on. I used to play pop with my students for doing that. And I've gone and done it. Why you went too far up there a bit. Roll it. Put a bit of pressure on onto your paste there. Make sure that's round and then put that to one side to dry. And I'll just mop that up. Put that down there. And get rid of the paste. Don't forget, if you use these Ziploc bags, if you get all your air out by rolling it up like that, because I'm not going to use this again now for a while, and then seal your bag up, then it keeps it nice and tight. Now along with the ones that I've just done here, I've already got my mauve ones ready to go onto for the next stage. They've already dried, so I can get my other flower out. I'm just going to pop that upside down for a minute while I sort out my tape, make sure I've got enough here. Not enough there, so I'm just going to cut some more tape. Should be able to use that. Where's my cutter? There it is. My trusty little tape cutter here. Just mind your fingers if you're using these, because these razor blades in here are very sharp. No, that end's not going to go in. Try this end. Just drop it down far enough so it comes out at the other side where you can get hold of it. Like that. Bring your top down and then just pull it down on the blade. Clever little things. These are made by Gem Products, so if you can get hold of Gem Products wherever you are, you should be able to get these cutters, and they're just normal razor blades in there, but they come with 3 blades in. I take 2 of them out. You just unscrew the side and it comes apart, and just keep one in, and then as the blade gets gunged up with the glue from the tape, then just take it out, turn it round, use that side, and then turn it over, and you've got another 2 sides. So they last forever, do the blades on these. So I'm just going to start off my tape underneath the flower there, pinch that in, and roll that on. Once I've got that going, push that right up underneath your flower. And then what you need to do now, just pop that to one side. All of the flowers, I'm going to bend the wires down. So that's going to go on like that. So it wants to go, your wires want to come back that way, away from the open part of your petals, like that. So if you just bend all your wires back, ready to put on, you can adjust them if they're not in the right position once you've got your petals wired in. Right, so once you've done all that, then you can start taping your petals in. Now I've got 13 of these petals, and bring that up. This is where I might have a bit of difficulty with my gammy finger. Find it gets a bit easier the more wires you get put in, so it doesn't matter where the petals go at this point, you can fill in once you've got a few of them in. I think we might just have to pull those wires up a little bit more. That's it. You can do this while they're still slightly soft, but I would let them firm up a bit before you put them in, so that they're easier to handle. But then you can move them about if they're still flexible. Especially if you're using cold porcelain, because you can steam it and soften it and stretch it around a bit. So one of the advantages of porcelain is you can manipulate it a bit better, and it doesn't break as easily either. I've noticed some people on some of the groups tend to do all the flowers in porcelain. I used to do when I was like, oh, I've lost a petal there. These are still a bit soft, that's why. I might have to fill in with another one. We'll just take that one out. Whoops. Should have let these dry, shouldn't I? Never mind. These things happen. So I'm not going to try and manipulate them too much because they are quite brittle at the moment. The problem I found with putting the wires up the stems, which is what I did with the one that I showed you to start off with, was that they can come through your paste when you're rolling it if you're not careful. That's why I tried it this way, but now I'm beginning to think that maybe the other way was the better way. Your decision. If it's your flower, you make it your way. All I'm doing is just giving you the options that you can use to make the flower. And just go around and see where you've got any gaps. Might be a good idea if you can do it upside down, to do this upside down, then you can see where your petals are going. Probably less chances of breakages as well if your paste's a bit soft. So I only made these petals this morning, they haven't properly dried, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape down and I'm going to stop filming and I'll come back to the colouring. Let these petals dry before I do anything else with them. If you put it upside down, you can adjust your petals then into the positions that you want them to be in. And I think I'm going to have to make some more to replace the ones that, and I've just brought in another one, to replace the ones that I've broken, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to correct those and let these dry, and then I'll come back and do the colouring. Hi everyone, so I'm back again. I've got all of my petals attached to the back of my Dahlia, and while I've been off screen as well, I've also finished off the yellow one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get onto the Calyx and then onto colouring the flowers. So I'm just going to pop that on one of my pads just for the time being. I'm just going to take that over here and get my green paste. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat, so I do apologise. Right, so I'm going to go back to the cutter that I used for the first layers, and I'm going to cut out the Calyx for both of those. For those of you that have come from Facebook that follow the pages that I put my flowers on there, I will finish off the peach one as well and put a picture of that on there finished and coloured. But I'm just going to concentrate on the two, the lilac one and the yellow one for the time being. So I'm going to cut out 4 of these. 2 for each flower. I have already made some leaves for these dahlias. I'm not going to go through that as well because this is probably going to be a long video anyway, and I've done plenty of leaves in other videos that I've done, but I will show you the leaves and show you what I've done with them. Right, Right, so get my other pad, put these onto here. Because I haven't got any dahlias in flower at the moment, I can't have a look at them to see what the calyx is like on the back, so I'm sort of winging it a bit with this. So I'll start off by thinning all my edges out on all the calyx. Just while I'm doing this, I would like to say to all those people that have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for subscribing. I'm sure that most other people that have got channels on here appreciate the following that they get from subscribers. And I mean, it is free to subscribe, so it's not going to cost you anything, and if you like what we do then it's also good to know when we upload a new video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overturn two of those because no, sorry, beg your pardon, I missed a step here. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a little bit of texturing on here because they're quite wide. I'm just going to use my cutting wheel just to put some veins into the calyx, just so it's not just flat green. You don't have to do this, but I mean, it just makes it look a bit more interesting if you just put a little bit more, that little bit of extra detail into it. Especially if you were doing this on a cake, you'd only put one of these on per tier. You wouldn't be putting a lot else in with it, and possibly depending on how you put it on your cake, the back may be visible, so it's good to have something for people to look at when they're looking at if they're round the back of it. You never know, do you? Because I mean, even if people don't see the back, you don't know that. You're going to get some nosy person that might have a look at the back to see how much detail you put into it. Right, so I'm going to turn those over and get my glue. Put a bit of glue on there, and then I'm going to get one of the other ones, and that'll go with the sepals in between the previous layer, like that. And you can, if you want, curl some of these back. So I'm going to leave that upside down and then put a bit more glue here, but I'm going to go further down with this because that part is going to attach to the back of the flower. So if I get my lilac one to start off with, and if we take that down the back onto the back of the flower like that. Now where's my Dresden tool? There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this up onto the wire, just to make it look as though it's all part of it. Just very gently stroking it up. And blending it in. Like that. And then if you wanted to, you could curl these calyx up a little bit just to give it a bit of movement. So that's the back on that one. So I'll just go through that again and do the yellow one. Just pop that to over there. Glue. Just a bit in the centre. Turn that over, and that can go in between that layer. Bring that down onto that, like that. And then again with the resin tool, just bring that up onto the wire. Just to blend that in. Right, so that's the back done. While I've got them on the back, I'm just going to get rid of that pad because we don't want to get any colour on there. I'm going to get some kitchen roll, and I'm just going to dust the back of the flowers while we've got them upside down here. So I'm going to use some ginkgo for this, which I think is what I've used on my leaves. If I can find a set of leaves. No, I have coloured some. Well, I've coloured one. I've got one here that I've done. I just dusted it with a bit of claret on the edge, and then dusted it all over with green, and then varnished it and just dusted the back as well. I have some more to colour here, but I'll put them on for the photographs when I've finished, because you all know how to make leaves. I'm going to use a smaller brush to do the calyx on here. So onto your brush and off your brush. Don't have a lot of powder on your brush because you don't want it to go onto the flower itself. Doesn't matter if you catch a little bit on there because you do get little bits of green on the flower, but try to avoid getting specks of dust all over the place, particularly if you're entering competitions, because they will pick up on that. I got pulled up on that for specks that I couldn't even see. So I don't know what they were using when they were looking at it, but obviously they must have seen it. Right, so that's the back of that one done. Just get the lilac one down and put that one up there. As you can see, the calyx is already dropped back a bit on this one as well that I've done, so I'm just going to go underneath there just to get at the I can always go over this a bit when it's finished. If there's any bits that I've missed when it's dried a bit. I don't normally do it when it's soft, but because I'm doing a demonstration I don't want to have to be waiting again to do that again, and keeping you all in suspense. Right, so that's the Calyx done on the back of that now. So I'm just going to change over my colours. Get rid of that one. I'm going to do the purple one first of all, because if you remember at the beginning of the video when I showed you that, I'll just get that one out again. That's this one here. It's got like little speckles on it. And I saw this done with another flower we did with a class years ago when I had my shop. And I thought, yeah, I had a Dahlia last year that was very much like this. So this is the one that I'm copying. So for that I'm going to use my Empress Purple. Get rid of that brush and get a brush for the purple. Get the dust off your brush before you start. And then what I'm going to do is just catch the edge, very tips of the petals with the Empress Purple. Just move my camera up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. The other one that I did, the first one, the outer petals were almost white because I used a slightly light, started off with a slightly lighter shade when I started doing it. So they do tend to vary a little bit. But then even when you buy plants, when you buy tubers and things like that for things like this sort of plant, they don't always look exactly the same as the picture. It depends on the photographer that's taking the picture and the lighting that they've used and every other little factor that comes into it. I'll just go around the inner petals, catching the edges of those. It's amazing when you start dusting your flowers how much they come to life. If people are watching that, just interested in watching this sort of thing, and maybe now come to realise why cakes, particularly with sugar flowers on, are the price that they are. Because if we had to sit down and work out how long it takes you to do a flower and charge on an hourly rate, we'd actually never be able to get that. I reckon that one of these flowers is probably taking about 6 hours to do one flower, and if I was charging just the practically the minimum wage, which shortly in the UK will be about £10 an hour, so they're saying, that means one flower would cost £60 to do. But unfortunately we could never charge that, so we never get the money that we should for the amount of work that we do. It has to be made on the actual cake itself. You have to be making a good profit on that to cover for all the other bits and pieces, because for what we charge for these flowers, you would never get it back. Plus as well, also, if you're buying equipment to make a particular flower for a customer that you've never made before, you're having to lay out money to buy that equipment for something you may never use again. Right, so I'm just going to go in the centre with just a little bit more purple and get that deeper in the centre there. Just catch the edge of those petals like that. Right, So that's that part of that flower done. I'm just gonna put that there for a minute. I'm just going to get some kitchen roll to put on my pad over here so I can leave it upside down till that calyx dries, so I can get on to the next thing. Now for the next part of it, any kind of painting that you're doing, I've always mentioned that in all my videos, I use the lid of my powders to mix my colour in for whatever flower I'm doing, for the simple reason that I hate waste, because you can reconstitute it every time you come to use it, and you don't have to keep washing it out and adding more and wasting more of your paste. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some isopropyl to that, and then I've got a toothbrush here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that in. I'm going to need some more isopropyl in there. There won't be enough, so I'll have to put some into the lid. This is mainly because my isopropyl is nearly empty. I'm down to the bottom end, so if I use my shop syringe to get that into there. Pop that back into there, and I can add a bit more isopropyl to this, although I don't want it too thin, I don't want it too thick either for the next step, which can get a bit messy. So I'm just going to move my other dahlias out of my block because I need that. Put that into there for now, and that on there, and then get my put that back up there. That's my peach one. I'm just going to move that to the back. So again, into the colour, and then all you do then is just, this is going to get messy with your fingers, just pull the bristles back and get it to spray all over your flower. So I'm warning you, it does get everywhere, does this. Right, that's one done. So I'm just going to put that block back up there, put that back in there, and then my half finished one can go into that as well, my peach one. Straighten that wire up. I'm trying to keep my finger out of the way because, as you can see, I've got a purple finger, so if you just bear with me a second, I will go and wash that off. Right, so I'm back. I've washed my hands, I've got rid of most of it. There's still a little bit left on there, but it's not enough to worry me. So I'm just going to put my end on my syringe there. I'm going to need that again in a minute, and I'm just going to get rid of that out of the way and pop my toothbrush spare in my cabinet and get rid of that one, so we can get on to the yellow one. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to use claret for this, for the edge. There's some wonderful colours in dahlias, so you can get carried away with your colour on these sort of things, you know. So it's how creative you want to be. I'm just going to pop that up there for a minute while I just get some colour out on my top. So I've got another brush here that I use for my burgundies and things like that. If you haven't got a lot of brushes like me, then just get some cornflour or some icing sugar on a surface and just work your brush in it to get the colour out. That brings the colour out so you can use it for others, because not everybody has the luxury, because if you buy the proper dusting brushes like these, I mean these can be anything from about £3 odd each upwards, depending on where you buy them from and what quality it is. Some of these I've had for donkey's years. That particular one there, this is actually the first brush I ever bought. So we're talking about over 30 years for that. So I mean, they do last a long time. And if they get really bunged up with colour, you can actually wash them out. If you use some isopropyl, that's brilliant for bringing the colour out. Right, so I'm just going to start again on the very edge, dusting the burgundy in, just on the very tips. Oh, I'm squashing my paste, forgetting that's still soft on the back. While everything's still soft, I can move my petals around a bit as well to get them just where I want them to be. Actually, once I was watching a video once, and I was watching somebody else's video, and she had one of those little blow things that you get for your camera lens to blow away any loose powder, which is a good idea to have that. I keep meaning to get one, and considering I have got an SLR camera, I should really have one. It's something that I've not got round to yet, but I will do one of these days. I will get there. It's like everything else, we always mean to do things, don't we, and we don't get there. These fiddly little ones are the ones you have to be careful with when you're getting your colour in there. Probably as well, just going over the top like that, just catch the edges of them. That looks quite effective, doesn't it? Now I was going to do some more on there. I had one that was very much like this, and it had sort of little lines on. You could do with it by getting a piece of wire and putting it into your colour the same way as I did with the purple, and then just sort of laying it on and just catching stripes here and there. I might think about it and try it on a petal and see how it looks, but I also might just leave that as it is, because it does look very nice just with the colour on the very edge. Right, I hope you've enjoyed that, and like I said, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and come back and see me soon. I've got plenty of other things in the pipeline, and as I keep saying, if you've got any ideas of anything that you'd like to see me do, I have had some ideas thrown at me, so I'm going to have a go at some of the things that I've already been asked about. But I'm always looking to try something new that I've never done before. It's how long's a piece of string. There's so many different flowers and that there are that we can trial. So yeah, come back with some ideas and take care. See you soon. Stay safe.